So unless you've been living under a rock for the last few years, it should come as no surprise, zero surprise whatsoever, that Trump wants to impose tariffs on foreign steel and aluminum. So that means all steel and aluminum not made here in America would get taxed at a higher rate. Now, this was a campaign promise of President Trump. He's been saying it forever.
We're going to go from making the worst trade deals in the history of any country, to having great trade deals where we bring jobs back, where we bring money back, where we bring factories back, where we bring your steel industry back.
A Trump administration will also ensure that we start using American steel for American infrastructure. We are going to put American steel and aluminum back into the backbone of our country. This alone will create massive numbers of jobs.
When you put it that way, it doesn't sound so bad. Now, Trump is pledging this week to make good on that promise, but is it actually a good promise? That is the question I have invited the King's College Associate Professor of Business and Economics, Brian Brenberg, on the show to answer. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Good to see you, John.
So, Brian, can you break this down for the American people who hear Made in America and they think, hell yeah, that's great. Why would a tax on foreign steel and aluminum actually hurt the average American person?
Look, Made in America is great, but the problem with a tax on steel and aluminum is there are an awful lot of things made in America out of steel and aluminum whose prices are going to go up and whose costs are going to go up because of a tariff. You've got about, you got about 150,000 people working in the steel industry, for example. You've got about 5.5 million people in America who need steel or who need aluminum as inputs into what they make. So when you put a higher tax on steel or aluminum, what you're saying to those companies who make things out of steel and aluminum is your prices are going to go up, your costs are going to go up, it's going to be harder for you to compete on an international stage, and that means job losses for Americans. So Made in America is great, but you got to remember that there's a lot of things made in America out of steel, and those companies suffer when you raise the cost of things like steel and aluminum.
Now, Trump is claiming that this will create jobs. Is that just bogus?
Well, it'll probably create some jobs in steel and aluminum industries. There's no question about that. There'll be relatively small numbers, and we're talking about 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 jobs. But the problem is, for all the jobs that you create in steel and aluminum, you're going to destroy many, many more in industries that need steel and aluminum as inputs. By one estimate, you'll probably see 1,000, 2,000 job increases in aluminum production as a result of this tariff, but you'll see about 20,000 jobs disappear. So you've got to look at costs and benefits, and the problem is when you raise taxes on steel, when you raise taxes on aluminum, it actually hurts the people who use those products, and there are far more people in this country doing that than actually producing them in the first place.
And Bush actually tried this. He put a tariff on steel, and the results were not good.
No, I mean, at that point, this is back in 2002, there were about 187,000 steel jobs in the country. And, those jobs were helped because of the tariffs. But the problem was higher tariffs on steel actually destroyed 200,000 jobs at the very same time. So we end up big time net losers in that whole situation. That ought to be a lesson to us. When we try to do this, it helps a very small group of people and harms a much larger group of people. So the answer here, if you want to help Made in America, if you want to help American jobs, the answer isn't to raise costs for American companies that need steel and need aluminum.
Now, one group of people that's not happy about this, beer manufacturers. They're really upset about this. This can, obviously made of aluminum right here, it's one of the metals that Trump is threatening to tax. And beer manufacturers are saying that the tariffs would make it more expensive to produce and sell their beer. Here's a statement from Miller Coors. It says, quote, "We are disappointed with the President Trump's announcement of a 10% tariff on aluminum. Like most brewers, we are selling an increasing amount of our beers in aluminum cans, and this action will cause aluminum prices to rise. It is likely to lead to job losses across the beer industry." But in reality, Brian, the cost of beer is not going to go up that much. So this is a bigger problem than just the cost of beer.
Yeah, it is. Look, I mean, a six-pack of beer is probably going to go up by about 6 cents, all else being equal because of this tariff. So, there's no beer drinker out there that's saying, well, I'm not going to buy my six-pack on Friday night because the cost goes up 6 cents. That's why I actually think it's not, don't look at the beer issue so much. That's the issue that's getting all the attention. Look across the economy. It's not just beer manufacturers. It's anybody who makes heavy machinery, anybody who makes cars, anybody who makes appliances, anybody who makes inputs into those things. Those are the guys who are going to get hit by this tariff. And the problem is that's where you're going to see the job losses because their costs go up. They're going to have to try to pass that on to consumers. Consumers, by the way, aren't going to like that when not only their beer prices are going up, but any canned goods that they buy, any appliances, any automobiles. Walk around your basement, walk around your pantry, walk around your kitchen, look at all the things made out of steel, look at all the things made out of aluminum. That's where your cost increases are going to be. Over time, that leads to losses for all these industries. The beer industry is just one among many here, and that's what's important to remember. The effects are pervasive, John. They run throughout the economy, and they're going to hit everybody in some way.
Now, Brian, you say that we shouldn't even be focusing on these tariffs because the Trump administration has done a significant amount to actually help steel manufacturers and aluminum manufacturers. Explain.
Yeah, no, look, I really appreciate the focus that President Trump has placed on helping out manufacturing, on helping out steel and aluminum. I mean, these are important industries. There's no question about it. The question is, how do you help all of them? With a tariff, you help steel manufacturers and aluminum manufacturers to the detriment of everybody else in this country who manufactures products with those inputs. The better thing you can do is get the economy growing. That's going to help steel manufacturers, that's going to help aluminum, and that's going to help everybody who uses those products as inputs into their processes. That's what the Trump tax cut has been doing. That's what the regulatory rollbacks have been doing. They've been helping industries across the country. So if you want to really make the American economy hum again, if you really want to help the Made in America movement, the best thing you can do is something that helps everybody in this country. Tariffs always take from one person and give to another, but economic growth helps everybody across the board. And President Trump, he deserves credit for having helped in that regard. The problem is these tariffs are now working against his very best policy, which is tax relief and regulatory relief.
That's all very true, and he does not seem to be, by the way, backing down on these tariffs. Brian Bremberg, thank you so much.
You bet. Good to be here.
That was Brian Bremberg, everyone, with the King's College. Thanks for watching, and we will see you on the next brief.